Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about earth changes. All of us are talking about the extreme weather patterns going on, kind of scratching our head saying, hey, it didn't used to be like this. Well, it didn't. But the interesting thing is, according to the Z's in my book with Lee Harris called The Future Human, changes to the earth aren't going to be nearly as bad as we thought they were going to be several decades ago, and worse earlier than that. So we'll get to that in a moment. Just want to say, if you enjoy my work, please feel free to go to my site, reginameredith.com, and sign up for my newsletter, which will let you know about upcoming book clubs and interviews, and also give you access to a wonderful document by my soul group called The Human Origins. It's a story you've never heard anything like, and it's absolutely beautiful to help us understand who we are and why we seem to be as we are today. Also, you can sign up for Patreon, which helps me keep the lights on and pay my wonderful editor and assistant and social media person. So now let's get on to the story. Many people, as I said a moment ago, are concerned about the changes that are happening because we call it climate change. You can call it changes in weather patterns. This is not anything political. This is just a fact. The weather's changing on the planet. Now, one of the things we can look to is that the earth herself is subject to the same consciousness, and this is in the future human, same consciousness that we are. Every sentient thing throughout our cosmos is going to be affected by this incredibly high, rapid movement of consciousness moving throughout our cosmos and affecting essentially every sentient thing on each of the planets throughout the cosmos, including the Earth and all her living beings. So the Earth is going through changes just like we are. Our bodies, our minds, our emotions are going through changes because of this rapid change in this incoming consciousness that the Z's talk about a great deal in this book. Now, one of the things that's interesting is many years ago, we would be talking about late 80s, I think it was probably the late 80s when I came into contact with Gregg Braden's first book called 0 Point. And at the time, I was just waking up to a lot of these concepts. And he was talking about the magnetic field of Earth. And if you're, depending on how old you are, you probably heard back at the time, it was kind of scary. Oh my God, 2012 is it. We're going through a pole shift, meaning everything flips. We all die, start over again. And I mean, this was information that was taken quite seriously because of the dissipation of the magnetic field that Gregg Braden and other geologists were noticing at the time. Well, we made it through just fine. We made it through Y2K, we made it through 2012, and in fact, we're going to make it, period. But what's interesting about that, Gregg Braden has continued doing research into this and has done a documentary on it and is showing what's happening from a geological point of view with the core of the Earth, the magnetics, etc. And one of the things that's going on is, yes, the magnetic field has slowed down. That is true. And we are going through these various kinds of weather pattern changes, which are normal. The Earth has gone through extreme weather pattern changes throughout her history, just as we have. Our soul has had bodies, shed them, gotten new ones, and shed them. Her soul, in this body, it's a much longer lifespan than ours, has gone through a tremendous amount of change over time, and will continue to. In fact, I called Greg and said, geez, Greg, let's talk about that with everything going on. Whatever happened after that original book you wrote, 0 Point? And he's saying, no, Regina, things are going to change. Things have changed. The outcome has changed. And he said, one of the things that's quite interesting, you have these kind of magnetic plumes coming from the center of the Earth. One goes up over to the side of the Earth of Asia, we have Pakistan, for example, and the other plume is coming up in the Ring of Fire, which includes the west coast of the United States, California in particular, known for its earthquake activity. Okay, so he said, if you were to look at earthquake activity on a daily basis now in California alone, and along the Ring of Fire in general, you would see that there's nearly constant activity. And this activity is coming in very low voltage, so to speak. I mean, the magnitudes of the earthquakes that are happening almost continuously, apparently every day. I've looked at it from time to time. It does seem to be seismic activity virtually every day, are 3 and below. These aren't things that would even be in our awareness. An animal might notice something's going on, but humans wouldn't notice it. It wouldn't cause any damage. And he said, that's the beauty of it. What's happening there is it's just letting off steam, so to speak, so it doesn't build up to have this catastrophic outcome. Well, I thought, God, that's amazing, because people still talk about, oh, wouldn't move to California, don't want to be in that ring of fire, right? He said, no, not going to be like that. And on the other side of the earth, however, is interesting because the energy builds up and builds up. And as we know from reading events that happen in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and in that area of the earth, we have these incredibly devastating earthquakes, massive loss of life, mudslides and rock slides that follow. Devastating. It's not the same as on the Ring of Fire side. Now, what I'm going to say following this can be quite controversial, and I understand that, but it's to illustrate a larger point. It's not to put any kind of blame or any kind of credit on anyone. It's just an example of what appears to be. To finish that part of the story up, Greg says now, looking at the magnetic field and the changes that are going on in Earth, we should not be seeing a pole shift anytime soon. That is a distant, far away thing that will happen sometime way down the road in the future. It is not imminent. It's not anything that we need to be concerning ourselves with, which, nothing you can do about if it were going to happen. But we were actually concerned about it at one time. We actually thought, it might happen on our shift and we might all be dead. So fortunately, that time has passed. The evidence for that has passed and things have changed. And that's the interesting part of this story. So I want to go back to my guide, my soul group that I've talked about before, and what they had said about earth changes a long time ago, which is what inspired me to ask about earth changes of the Z's in our book, The Future Human, and then their comment on it. So first, let me go back now, maybe almost 40 years ago, I would say, when we were asking about these kinds of earth changes, because we had been reading Edgar Cayce's books. Now, in Edgar Cayce's prophecies, if you've ever read them, they were quite pronounced and dire for aspects, certainly portions of the United States, to basically just chunk off and fall into the sea. Including California and the West Coast, part of Oregon, but mostly California. And of course, this is a little concerning if you live in these areas. This also was going to be true of the Northwest, portions of the Northwest, the Southeast, Florida. According to Edgar Cayce, gone. Now, he didn't give exact timelines, but the impression was it would be around after the turn of the century, which is long past. And so these things didn't happen. And as I just talked about, in fact, the activity along the Ring of Fire is even lessening and softening to keep something that dire from happening, at least at this time. So I was speaking to my soul group, the main being, and I said, so what's happened? Is that still, now this was in the late 80s again, or mid 80s. I said, are these events still scheduled to happen? So as you can understand, in the 80s, when the New Age thing was just really popping up and taking hold, there was a lot of fear around these kinds of prophecies. And they said much of what was told by Edgar Cayce is not going to come to pass. And they said, but some of it will, but much of it won't. And I thought, but he was such an excellent seer. Anyone who's read Edgar Cayce's work knows that he was just impeccable in his sight. And they said, no, what's happening over time. And Edgar Cayce, again, was known for diagnosing particularly medical and psychological conditions in the moment and pairing the person with the right remedy or treatment. And he was very, very good at that. And they said what's going to happen is because his prophecy was over a long period of time that things do change, and they change in relationship to shifts in consciousness. Now, I didn't comprehend fully what they were talking about. It was kind of an abstract to me, and I thought, okay. And they're saying, as the consciousness of the people on the land begins changing, you're not going to see the events play out in the same way. The Earth's emotional body and our emotional body are entangled. So what we're feeling, the Earth is feeling. Her emotions run differently than ours, but she has her own multidimensional body that has an emotional body included amongst those dimensions of her being. And that as we started learning and gaining some wisdom and starting to soften in terms of our poor old habits of, cruelty and such toward one another, that would affect the changes that were slated to happen on the earth. It would soothe and calm that region, which I found absolutely fascinating, but again, abstract. I thought, okay, I guess we just have to wait and see. Well, here we are now, 40 years later. Things have changed. And so I was asking the Z's about this very thing. I said, people are afraid of this wild weather going on, the climate changes, all of the earth activity and so forth. And they were saying, oh no, what would have happened even 20 to 30 years ago would have been far different outcome back then because of the consciousness of the people. And so they were validating what my soul group had told me all those years ago, which is what inspired me to ask that question to begin with. And they said, no, a lot of those changes won't be happening. I said, but what about Edgar Cayce? He was such a good reader. And they said, he was a wonderful reader. And reading in the moment is one thing. He said, but many, many people, because thousands of people wrote to Edgar Cayce, that they would press him to give these extraordinary predictions about our future without taking into consideration that no one can accurately really predict the future, even the great Edgar Cayce. In any event, they said he answered because he got what he could on it and he was being pressured to do so. But that was really, he should have probably denied even answering those questions because you can't really predict that far out into the future what's going to happen with something as complex as a body like Mother Earth and our bodies and emotional bodies and minds intertwined with her. So he said it was just something that he probably shouldn't have read. And so accidents and mistakes can occur in readings when you're trying to look that far out. In fact, they said it's a mistake to do predictions of any kind at this point in time because consciousness is simply moving too fast. I think you can feel it in your daily life. I certainly do. I know last Thursday, I thought, I can't believe it's Thursday. It was just Thursday yesterday. And this collapse of time, it's like, what happened to the last week? Well, that's part of this. As I mentioned in my last commentary, time is the way consciousness is moving right now creates a difference in how we experience time. And we cannot really contend with our conscious minds. It's not capable of keeping up with the speed of the changes that are occurring. So just give it up. Yeah, it's going to feel like last Thursday was this Thursday, just yesterday. So that's part of what we're having to face. But I wanted to go on and share with you another aspect of the book that has to do with the earth itself. And that is, we have shifted by our own behaviors and our own thinking and our own refining ourselves on a vibrational level. We've changed the outcomes of these events, as I just spoke about. And the earth is constantly seeking to modulate and to also care for us. We don't understand that what we've done in disconnecting with the earth and living in little cages and cubicles throughout our lifetime inside huge office buildings where we're being saturated with Wi-Fi, EMFs of all kinds, is we have taken ourselves out of the very thing that heals us, Mother Earth. And the Z's speak about this in the book, that if we want to find balance again, if we want to find this harmony and calm, all we have to do is go back out into nature. And I've said this many times, in fact, use every opportunity I can in every interview to bring this up, that in the end, the one thing that will heal us is nature. We're born of it. Our DNA is only, 1% or so off from that of mice. We're all born of the same stuff. And we think that we can somehow live and survive without it. All you have to do is look at rat studies. And you'll see that they can't live without it. You put them in cages and treat them certain ways, pass EMFs through them, put them in crowded situations, give them crappy food, and their populations don't do well. They become obese, they die young, all the things humanity is plagued with. Instead of the little mice that, well, the thousands of them that live in my field just below here. My God. Anyway, these are healthy creatures. They're healthy and they're living out in the wild. So all I'm saying is that they spoke quite a bit of the need to reconnect with the very thing that gave us life, the very thing that our bodies are sourced from, understanding our host, Mother Earth, she herself, her emotions, wherever we are on the planet, are intertwined with our emotions. For us to now be very contemplative about taking a little bit of time to put our feet in the grass, you don't have to be like me out on acreage. You can be in New York City. You can go to Central Park. Anywhere you can find a little bit of dirt and hear a few birds tweeting and find a tree, then you have the potential to heal quite naturally. You'll find the nervous system immediately calms down when you start reconnecting with our earth, who is supporting us. That brings me to one of my very favorite subjects of all times, and that is trees. And they talked about trees quite a bit in the book, and they did that because I asked about trees. And they said, trees are this incredible force on the earth that is connected to cosmic consciousness, and they're bringing the consciousness down to us. And they said trees, as they're living on this planet, are doing this very similar thing that Earth herself does in terms of modulating the land, depending on our energies on that particular land. The trees are also modulating energy in the areas in which they gather. So, for example, they said, if you have something super violent and bloody, if you go back to historical places where battles have been raging in the past and a lot of blood has been spilt, for example, that the trees in that area, if it was a wooded area, the trees can take on that energy and they can pull it out and transform it. That there is no negativity this earth or its critters, including us, have, that trees can't transform and modulate. They're a very intelligent, steadying force. And the Aziz went on to tell me, you go through a walk in the woods and you have your eyes closed. And if you're like me, you go hug a tree or two. In fact, I have my favorite tree. I'll tell you about in a moment. But and we think of it as so peaceful and so quiet. And then the Z's did their usual, ha, that's their laughter, basically saying that trees are quite noisy. If you're walking through a forest, if we could dial into them, they're chattering away amongst themselves. They have a lot to say. And he said, and they thought it was quite funny that we think they're so quiet, when in fact, from their point of view, going into a forest is really quite a noisy experience. So for me, trees have always been a place of healing. And actually, I have it in my will that I won't say where, but that I will be buried at the base of a particular tree that I love. Meanwhile, this morning I was doing a podcast with a lovely woman out of Norway, and she was talking about trees in the forest, how her children, she has to force them to go out into the trees. And we know how out of balance our kids are getting now. We know that they're giving their sovereignty away to external forces, algorithms, devices, fake perceptions of everything, instead of going out into nature, which is really critical to tear those little devices out of their hands and get them out into nature just to feel balanced and calm for a moment. So as we were talking, she was telling me she'd gone in the trees this morning. And I said, that's exactly what I did. I have a little walk here that goes through a 93-acre bird sanctuary. And I love it. It's such a peaceful place. And there is, along the way toward the back, near the original Indian grinding stones for the Native American populations that used to live on the land here, you can go walk right out to them, sit on the grinding stones, and see the little wells where the women did their work. But just before you get to it is this tree that has grown up against a large boulder because this area is full of granite, and granite has quite a bit of quartz in it. And so there's a little saddle, this odd little place where this tree has merged over onto the rock. So I go there in the morning and I just sit in the saddle, and it's kind of like being out on your bicycle in the morning. You feel like you're a 10-year-old kid again. It's the same thing sitting in a tree. So I sit in that little spot, and then I do the exercises that I explained in my last conversation with you, my last commentary, about checking in with the heart and checking in with the multidimensional mind and the mind of the body, all the energy centers of the body. So I hear every kind of bird under the sun. There are bird watchers around, not many of them. Every bird there is chirping away in the morning, the breeze coming through the tree, the shade of the tree, the solidity of the rock I have my hand on one side, and the tree I have my other hand on, and just allow my body to become very quiet and peaceful, and let any truths I need to see arise from my own being. I'm not going there. I used to go and sit on a bench near the grinding stones, and I would call in guidance and everything from externally. But as the Z's have said, the time has come now to trust ourselves. The same thing that's out there is in here. It's in our hearts. It's in our aura, in our field, in our body, in our higher mind. Our higher mind is connected with soul, which is connected with all. So it's already here. So I've reversed that meditation now with my tree, and I just feel the truth, my truth, which makes me my own unique individual being, sovereign being on the planet. I feel my truth for myself on that day. And if I have something that I'm contemplating or worried about, I just sit in the tree, in that little saddle, and I just drop it down into the heart and let the heart speak to me. Ever since the Aziz transmitted that information in the book, I have been doing that exercise, and I find it sublime and simple and direct and calming and truthful. Your heart's not going to lie to you. The head will, subconscious will wrangle you around a bit. The emotions will too, as I talked about last time, but your heart's not going to do that. And there's no better place to connect with the heart and all the energy centers of this amazing, exquisite tuning fork of a biological body than to put yourself out in nature. So with that, just I want to let you know that these crazy earth changes you're seeing have been modulated, and they've been modulated because of the way we have changed. And if we think we haven't changed, I've said this many, many times, we are actually more peaceful, more kind, more aware than we have been in many thousands of years. So let's keep this in mind, that we're doing the good work. We've already started changing outcomes, as they said, as little as 20, 30 years ago. Some of these things that could have happened would have been far worse than what has actually occurred. So let's pat ourselves on the back. Know that we're working with Mother Earth, doing our job to keep things stable around here so we can continue our own experience and experiment being human. And to understand that if we need that kind of balance, that quiet that we're seeking, that Earth will always be there to provide that for us if we give her a chance. So let's get those little ones out on picnics in the park. Let's take the little devices away for a few hours and let them feel what grass feels like. Let them climb trees and do all those, quote, unsafe things that we did naturally as children, just running around as little packs of kids until the sun went down and it was dinner time. Let's let the kids have some of that again. I thank you so much for watching this. I hope it has helped you understand not only what's happening, but allaying any kind of fear about outrageous earth changes that are going to kill us all, that we're killing Mother Earth. It's not true. That's not true. It doesn't mean we can't be more polite, not leave garbage around, not pollute her with chemicals. We need to clean that act up, no doubt about it. But we're not killing her. We're actually doing far better than we could have done. If you like this content, please feel free to help by donating to Patreon for as little as $5 a month. Helps keep the lights on, the pieces edited, social media rolling, etc. for my wonderful little crew. In addition, you can sign up for my newsletter. That'll give you access to a download of this amazing human origin story that you've likely never heard before. I think you're going to love it. Thank you.